And good morning, Unicorn fam. Welcome to the Crypto Unicorns bi-weekly town hall number 44. This is Sparkly Unicorn with Witty Unicorn on Tech. So let's introduce who we have on stage for today. We have Councilwoman Ziori and LG Jeff, and they will be sharing more about gems and the Gemworks with us. Do you guys want to have a little intro?
What up, everybody? How we doing? How are you, Jeff?
Thursday, everyone. I'm doing great. This week's just flying by, and I'm excited to share more about gems.
Likewise, I'm in Denver right now for the Rare Evo conference. Realizing it's pretty Cardano heavy, so I'm going to see if I can win over some Cardano folks. I feel like a youth again. I used to go on those Christian retreats and then just argue with people about why I'm right and they're wrong, and maybe I can channel some of that youthful energy into this conference and win over a few new ETH heads and send them right over to Polygon. That's the plan of attack for this weekend for me, Jeff.
And I wish you luck with that. I'm sure you're gonna have a blast, and yeah,
it's gonna get bloody in the streets out here at the Gaylord. I'll tell you what. But today, Gems and Gemworks. This one's cool. Aaron teased it a little bit in the last town hall, I think kind of by accident. We hadn't really talked about it too much, partially because we wanted to save this reveal for a moment like right now when we have a little quiet before the storm, right? Big patch going to be coming out today, 2.3, 2.4 in the near horizon, right? So Gems and Gemworks going to be a big addition to the game. Jeff, anything you want to say to set the stage before we dive on into the presentation?
Yeah, when the game launched last year, the main way for you to get more powerful unicorns was to breed and evolve. There definitely was a pathway there, and over time we've seen unicorn power increase, but it was very random, right? A lot of it is outside of your control. A lot of it was in the hands of the RNG gods. And a lot of people asked, well, why can't we just, directly make our unicorns stronger? But it was always our plan to have a system where you could directly increase your unicorn's power. And Gems is the first system we're introducing to do that. So let's just start in. Before I continue, I just want to share with you some of our kind of thoughts of or decision making.
The guiding principles.
Exactly for the design of gems. The first thing is, like I said, will have a direct way to make a unicorn stronger by equipping them with gems. And unlike breeding and evolution, which is fairly random, you will have nearly complete control as to what gems go on which unicorns, which means that you can choose what stats you want to add to which unicorns, and that's very different from what's been happening with breeding and evolution so far. The third kind of principle is gems are going to be NFTs that could be bought and sold on Haku. So we want to make sure that we can keep the gem population under control, and so we have a couple designs in gems to do that. And then finally, to craft gems, to create new gem NFTs, you will need to be part of a tribe. So Gems and the Gemworks is going to launch alongside tribes, and while you don't need to be part of a tribe to equip a gem, if you want to create gem NFTs yourself, you will need to be part of a tribe. So let's jump in.
All right, cool. I like that. So just to be totally clear, anyone can equip gems that are purchased on a marketplace, but you have to be part of a tribe. So it's sort of like you can almost visualize the Gemworks as this big sort of monolithic type structure that your tribe works on together to produce the, harvest / produce these kind of precious gems that the unicorns need to be upgraded. So it adds a real motivator to be part of a tribe and figure out how to make it all work.
Exactly. So, for those who play RPGs, think of a gem like a piece of equipment, right? It'll have a stat on it, and it could have potential stat bonuses based on how good the equipment is. And at least for the initial launch, gems will only have stats and potentially a stat bonus. Down the road, we may introduce other types of bonuses that go on a gem, but because there's a lot of unicorns out there that need to be equipped, the first round of gems is going to be relatively simple, but there's room for growth. So what gems are, that they're NFTs that can be equipped to a unicorn, and when they're equipped to unicorn, they actually change the stats in the unicorn's metadata. So the stats of your unicorn are going to increase once you equip a gem to it. Each gem will have a raw stat increase, a tier to it. There's 6 tiers of gems, just like we follow the 6-tier structure in genes and boosters. We're following that structure with gems. The higher tier gems will have stat bonus, and higher tier gems may also have a restriction as to which unicorn the gem could be equipped on. But yeah, that essentially is everything that a gem kind of has on it.
Pretty straightforward. Yeah. I mean, these remind me of, like, I think World of Warcraft, like jewels, you've got this item, it has sockets, you put different jewels in it that can customize it to increase, the specific stats that your character needs. Or in this case, your unicorn needs. So one thing to note is that it'll be connected. So you see the stat here is plus 10 attack speed. The bonus is plus 5% attack speed, plus 2% attack speed. That will stay consistent. So the RNG is a little bit limited. You'll see as we move on, there are different dice rolls that will take effect, but they'll be pretty consistent in terms of which stat they're providing bonuses to.
Yeah, as mentioned, there's going to be 6 tiers, and as a gem gets, as you get a higher tier gem, you're going to get more stats and plus better bonuses. So, in general, starting out, you're going to probably equip the lower tier gems just because those are going to be easier to get. But over time, grinding to equip your best unicorns with top tier gems will give you the largest stat improvements, which will be helpful in kind of maxing out a unicorn's potential in all gameplay loops that use stats, whether it be jousting, Twilight Tactics, or future gameplay modes that we add.
Yeah, well, and now even questing and some of those loops are starting to be more stat specific. So I found myself on the quest board where I don't know what your magic threshold is of what you're willing to gamble on a quest. For me, it's around that like 75 to 80% completion rate. And to me, that's a threshold where you could start being able to push your unicorns up a little bit closer. So it's getting relevant to more of the gameplay as total stats becomes just like a key factor. I mean, thinking about a tier 6 gem giving me 125 stats plus a percentage increase, it's pretty significant. Like we're going to see some high stat corns once there's enough gems created.
Definitely. So how many gems can a unicorn equip? We are designing for each unicorn to have 8 slots for gems, and just to preface, only adults can equip gems. Babies will not be able to equip gems. It's one of the perks of being an adult is now you're responsible enough to have gems that give you power. But so there's going to be 8 gem slots total. 2 will be unlocked for a new adult with all their breeding points. The remaining 6 slots get unlocked as you breed with that unicorn. It's still a scientific mystery as to why breeding more helps you use more gems, but that's just the way that it is. You will have to use all your breeding points to unlock all 8 gem slots. But at the very least, you'll have 2 before you start breeding. But it does help. The more veteran unicorns be able to get stronger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like this breakdown a lot, and obviously, you get 2 gem slots if you're just a regular unicorn that hasn't been bred at all. But to get it equal to 8 gem slots and 0 breed points, there are some break points where slot 4 to 5 requires two breeds, and slot 5 to 6 also requires 2 breeds. So, per usual, I think with these things, we're presenting a framework and always interested in feedback, but systems like this where, all right, we've agreed on kind of a framework and the edge parameters, those kind of breakpoints are relatively easy to tweak if they feel off. So just one little thing that stands out here, but I like this a lot. I love the incentive to just push people like, hey, if you really want to max out this unicorn, you should breed it. And it just adds one more temptation to burn some unum that I've been burning through very quickly in my breeding research, Jeff.
Definitely. And I probably should have done this at the beginning to preface this presentation. Everything artistic looking is not real art or fine. We are not as far along in the art stage where I could show you final art. So don't really pay attention to the numbers. Even with the tuning, what you've seen is kind of ballpark tuning. Things are still up for final decisions, and like the Shadowforge tuning, we'll do a round of kind of sharing our initial final tuning for gems to get feedback on before the feature launches. So
this slide is another good example. I think originally Jeff had just the tiers in here, and I had pushed for some ballpark numbers just to give us a sense of like, how are we calibrating this thing? So there's totally a world where we do some testing, and you know what? Let's say tier 6 maxes out at 100, and then we'll calibrate everything down from there. Totally possible. So we'll obviously be sharing this out, and excited to hear some community feedback. And this is kind of like the first look is maybe a way to summarize this one. So
exactly. So
right.
how do players get gems? Just like other RPGs, a lot of ways equipment is earned is through crafting it, and gems are the same way. To craft a gem, you're going to need what we're calling a gem codex, which is just another name to say recipe. We would probably call it gem recipe, but we use recipe so many other places that we wanted another name for it. Gem codices are recipes that you use to craft gem NFTs. These are not NFTs themselves; they're in-game only. So you cannot, move a gem codex between wallets. It's completely in-game. But the gem codex will tell you, what tier the crafted gem will be, what the raw stat range of that stat is, what stat bonus it has, if any, how many times the codex could be used to craft the gem, the cost for crafting the gem, and if there's any restrictions to craft and equip the gem.
So you can see the kind of example on the right. Again, this is just like a mock-up to kind of show the general information that'll be displayed. It reminds me of an item from like an old MMORPG kind of thing. The dice roll part, I was thinking of kind of Diablo 2 items. The difference between a 98% enhanced damage sword and a 100% enhanced damage sword is pretty negligible in the actual impact of the numbers, but there's some collectorism to that. Like, I want perfect items, and people disproportionately pay for that breakpoint because it's that much more rare and desired. So we wanted some of that energy in this where, hey, maybe you hit a 38, that's a great dice roll, but there's always those whales or collectors on the marketplace that have the perfect unicorn, that want the perfect gems, and kind of build it up that way. And as Jeff said before, the restrictions of like, hey, you can only use this for a mystery unicorn. The idea is as you escalate up, so lower tier gems are much more kind of flexible and can be used anywhere, and the higher tier gems become a little more specialist and exciting in the gotcha.
Exactly. And we had talked about RNG earlier, a lot of the RNG is done in the actual making of the codex when it's generated, not necessarily the gem. So when you get a new codex, you'll get a random stat that it's added. The stat range is going to be based on what tier the codex is. The bonuses are going to be random. The range of bonuses, again, being tied to the tier of the codex. How many charges is random, as well as the costs and the restrictions. So, the law of the RNG happens when you get a new codex. But once you have that codex, the only thing that's random is the stat when you generate a gem. So, like, if with this codex, the first time I craft a gem, maybe it'll be a 30 plus 33 magic. If I craft the second time, maybe it'll be a plus 27 magic. The bonus will be on both of the bonus will be the same for both of those gems. It's just the stat that would change.
Right. That's a good delineation. There's kind of two different moments where there's a key dice roll. When the codex is created and you go, oh, wow, this was pretty lucky. I got magic. That's what I was hoping for because I want to buff up a magic unicorn. Oh, wow, I got 8 charges and I know the top roll it's 10 and the bottom roll is 3. Okay, 8's pretty good. And with the cost to craft, you might get lucky and go, oh, wow, it's only 12 marbles or pebbles instead of 15. It's like you can maximize in different ways. If you're cost sensitive, then that could be the dice roll you really care about. And if you're more, stat sensitive or whatever, that could be another way to do it. But then once you're actually crafting the gems, that's where that 20 to 40, each gem that you create will be a little bit different than the one before it. You might get lucky and hit 2 40s, but that would be very fortunate, right? So yeah, lots definitely. Of moments for the jackpot feeling, I hope.
So now that you know that you need a codex to craft a gem, you'll have to now you have to go to actually the Gemworks and craft it there. The Gemworks is going to be one of the first buildings in a tribe. So you go to your tribe, go to the Gemworks, and there select the codex to then craft a gem with. The Gemworks building will have crafting slots for each tribe member, so you won't need to fight for tribe slots or crafting slots with other tribe members. You'll have your own set. You'll start out with just a few crafting slots, but it will grow to up to about 8 as the Gemworks is leveled up by the tribe. But yeah, otherwise it is going to be a similar flow to crafting. You go to the Gemworks, you choose a slot, choose the codex recipe, start the craft. Crafting a gem takes time, just like crafting individual items does. The big difference is that there's no way to be able to craft gems per individual land. You're going to have to go to your tribe and do it through the Gemworks.
Pretty straightforward. Excited about this sort of the tribe building experience, which is another reveal and another conversation, but kind of fun to tease that a little bit. And real quick, this artwork, this is, I guess, quote unquote, real artwork. This is like a preliminary mock-up of what the Gemworks could look like. You can see the little gems on the conveyor belt. Obviously, there'll be a little animation. The mouse in Jeff's screenshot showing the little smoke, the exhaust valve. So pretty cute. That is a working prototype that we did get from the art team. Kind of talked about this one about the charges.
So like I said, each codex can only be used so many times and then it gets consumed. Generally higher tier codices will have fewer charges and lower tiers will have more charges to try and keep the higher tier gem population under control. Speaking of population control, we had talked about that as one of our guiding principles. Besides codices having a limited number of charges, in the next slide, another way that the codex or gem population is going to be under control is you cannot, once the gem is equipped, you cannot unequip it. You can replace it with a new gem, but the gem that was slotted there is going to be burned. So the main motivation for this is we don't want players to just be able to like get some really, really nice gems and just share them between unicorns. Not only would that make needing more gems unnecessary, but it would also not help the gem population. So you can replace any gem you have equipped, but the equipped gem will be burned. So that is another way that we're trying to keep the gem population under control.
I like this, the way it's structured with, especially the tier ones are going to be very common, very basic, very easy. They don't have a lot of dice rolls. So it's just like, yeah, sure, great. I got an extra plus 100 stats to my unicorn. And again, for something like questing, it's calibrated more around like the middle of the bell curve. So these will be in demand for just like your average farm corns now in some ways, where you need this variety of stat distribution to appropriately do quests and stuff like that. But you don't have to worry too much about like, okay, I can burn these trick these out for now, get some utility out of them, and then you can always upgrade them later. So always potential to be upgraded, and it just simplifies the whole process. It forces you to make a commitment, a decision. This gem is now infused into this unicorn. Let that visual take it where you will. But I like it. I think this is a good structure, like a very easy way to build in a deflationary mechanic that doesn't feel overly punishing, right? It feels kind of fair, and the byproduct is very healthy for the gem economy.
Definitely. And speaking of equipping gems, because it is affecting the unicorn's metadata, obviously a transaction is going to be required. We are currently looking into a way where you can do all the gem equipping, gem replacing of a unicorn over all the slots. Do everything you want to do for the unicorn, and then kind of like an edit mode, right? And then once you're finished and you click save, you would need to do a transaction for all the changes you've made in one time. Because we want to reduce the amount of transactions you can do. We're still looking into like whether we can actually do that. Our team is hard at work on looking into that, but we're pursuing with that design pathway, assuming that we can for right now. Definitely will confirm if that is the final design, but the hope is that we could minimize the amount of transactions needed to equip your unicorns.
Yeah, try to batch things as much as we can. I will say, having talked to the blockchain team, I've gotten a lot of feedback about blockchain transactions and user flow and ways that we can reduce the number of clicks, not just in the gameplay, but also in the blockchain related stuff. And I know the team feels like we know some of the early designs aren't the best. We were kind of learning on the fly at the beginning. And now we have learned a lot from that and are trying to build things that really have the efficiency in mind of not just like blockchain, hey, let's reduce space on blocks, but also user efficiency of, instead of doing this one by one, why don't we try to batch things together anytime we can? So no specific promises there, like Jeff said, but I can definitely echo that. That feedback has been heard loud and clear, and the blockchain team is thinking about that architecture now a lot differently compared to the way they designed some of the original stuff that was created like a year and a half ago now, which is ancient history in blockchain world.
Definitely, and given that we created the game in less than a year, in 6, 7, 8 months, we definitely, that there were consequences for that, but we have a larger, stronger team now that is continually learning and getting better. So, the final way we're going to keep the gem population control is that, I've discussed before about you can buy and sell gems on Haku. That's true, but only certain rarity or tiers of gems. we don't want to flood the market with low tier gems. So we're gonna make the first 2 tiers of gems to be soul bound. You can't trade them, but tiers 3 and above you can trade, just to make sure that the gems that are for sale are of a certain quality or higher, and that we reduce the amount of gems that are for sale on the Haku.
I like this as well. I feel like this is a small thing, but it's a perfect example of adaptation where I think a year ago, even I would have said like, yeah, of course, gems are NFTs, put them on the marketplace, free market, all that jazz. And the deeper we go into this crypto rabbit hole, the more we realize like it's powerful to be more selective about what ends up on chain and what stays in the game server. And it's a really elegant way to both improve user experience, sometimes improve economic conditions, and it just kind of gives us more levers. So it very small, but I think this is a great idea. And you think about the visuals of the floor price. This is a really natural way for the gem floor price on Haku to be naturally at a decent number relative to the economy, because it starts at tier 3. We don't have these tier 1 just like, all right, nobody really needs these anymore, and now they're just headed to 0 kind of vibe. So an example of how we've learned from some past missteps, I guess, is what I'm bumbling to say.
Definitely. So for codex recipes, we'll be able to give them to you through rewards. Probably going to be higher tier rewards because we don't want to give too many out. But besides getting them through rewards, you could also purchase them through the Gemworks. There's going to be 3 different codex pools: a common, a rare, and a mythic. And to get a codex, you would need to get pages, which is a new item that we would be dropping of that codex pool rarity. And once you have enough, you can go spend your pages and and some RBW and Unum to purchase a codex. Obviously, the higher rarity codex pools will have higher tier codex recipes that can drop. This is the main way you get a codex recipe that's guaranteed. If you have the pages and you have the tokens, you can get it on demand. Otherwise, we will be dropping recipes as very valuable rewards that are hard to get.
Yeah. So pages will probably feel a little bit like the journey items. They kind of show up from doing parts of different gameplay loops. So again, incentivizes active gameplay. And then when I saw this, my brain immediately jumped to like Pokemon card packs. This is basically like 3 tiers of packs, and the pack opening is the moment of, okay, what's the dice roll? What tier codex did I get within my tier? Oh, sweet, I got a 3 out of common. That's really good. And then what stat it modifies and all the other dice rolls we talked about before on top of that. So it starts with kind of a wide funnel and then gets more specific from there. And pages, RBW, and Unum to purchase these, and then get your gem flow going. Still TBD on the exact numbers of how much RBW and Unum. So that's something to think about, / a number that we'll propose at some point in the future. A calibration point there, right? It's like you almost want those numbers to be higher because people want gems and it's a great sink for the economy. So this is a really healthy mechanism. At the same time, you want it to be accessible and you don't want those numbers to be too high, and you want it to be fun. I think there's also a plus side to this sort of like gotcha style system at the beginning is when people get good dice rolls or get lucky or get exactly what they want, it can become a generator for sort of free UGC, user generated content, because people just get excited to share. They're like, oh my God, I can't believe I got this pull. It just happened to me with the CyberKong Genkai stuff. It's like, I wasn't paid to tweet about that. I was just excited about getting lucky with opening a box or whatever. So I like this. Really curious to hear feedback about how folks feel about this system. But I think it's sort of a cool, it reminds me of a funnel. It kind of starts wide and then we get more specific as you end up getting the gems that you want. And again, if you just want to show up and spend money and buy, just all the best mythic gems exactly as you want, and you don't like to gamble, you should be able to do that. And you will be able to do that. And if there's people that want to do that, then it turns this whole marketplace into a great little loop where this can be a way that you can, quote, earn and make profit from the game without just, linear, Unum or RBW rewards. It's like a whole mechanism where if you're someone that wants to strategize and open up a bunch of codexes or roll a bunch of codices rather, you might get lucky and be able to sell those to the players that don't want to take that risk. So lots of benefits and trade-offs here, I think, is what I'm trying to say. Which I guess is a good prelude for our conclusion.
Exactly. So the key things are, equip gems to add stats unicorns. You'll have to start thinking about, of your favorite unicorns that you like to use, what stats would you like them to have that, and you could choose which gems to equip for them. We're going to try and keep gems fairly rare. So between not being able to sell lower tier gems, between, you only be able to craft a few gems from a recipe or a codex recipe, and the fact that you're going to be replacing older gems with newer ones, we expect the gem NFT population to not get super inflated. And lastly, you will need to be part of a tribe to create your own gem NFTs. So once Tribes launches, and this will be launching with Tribes, join the tribe ASAP and as soon as possible, and start getting stronger.
Yeah. So, and I apologize. Normally, I try to scan for questions as we go along. Today, I'm working on mobile with one screen, and I had to full screen for the sake of all y'all. So, we'll.
No worries, I gotcha. So we were able to collect some of the questions here. Let's take a look at the anonymous question that somebody asked just now. Hold on. As always, we have a 3 questions per person rule, and if it's not related to gems, or if it's a question about your account or a Zendesk issue, please refer to the mod support channel so that we can address that, or check your ticket on beginninggames.zendesk.com. Okay, we have an anonymous question. Individual stats are now capped at 1,000. Will the cap be lifted with the introduction of gems?
I'm sorry. Can you, if you got it, Jeff, then go for it. I missed it for some reason. I think I cut out.
The cap. Yeah, we haven't gotten any concerns from engineering about the stat cap, so we will. We should be able to go above it. That hasn't been a concern for this feature when we've talked to engineering, but that's a good idea to double check on that. But there hasn't been concerns raised yet that this will be an issue.
Okay. All right. And then our next question from Sigarian. Will these gems be visible on the unicorns when farming or jousting, etc.?
No, I mean, in an ideal world, we would love to have visuals, but given the high quality of our art, that would delay the feature by a long time to get the visual representation. So no, you won't see the visual of the gems on your unicorn as it's in the game.
All right.
What about like tooltip style though? Like where you click on a unicorn's stats in jousting as an example, could you see a spot where you could see even how many gems they have equipped of like, okay, this is an 8 gem unicorn. This thing is tricked out versus, okay, he's only got 2 gems. Maybe we're competitive. Just spitballing, but I wonder if that
would be an easier way to kind of get that information. Sure. In your unicorn profile, you will see all the gems you have equipped. Like there's a lot of room there. Just the actual visual of the unicorn itself won't change. But yeah, that would be a good idea to showcase how many gems a unicorn opponent has equipped in jousting.
Gotcha.
Cool.
Another question by Sigarian. What is the cost to craft these items?
So with gems, we are going to be releasing new crafting items. They're not going to only be the new ones. We want to mix some new, some old, because we still want to sync the current crafting items that are out there. But the cost is going to be a little bit variable on a codex because there's going to be ranges of costs that can be selected based on the stat that's chosen for the codex. So it's going to be, a few some of the new crafting materials, some old crafting items, and then for the highest or the higher tier gems, we're going to start requiring unicorn souls, which is what you get if a unicorn gets killed. Because that is another way to kind of start, controlling the unicorn population. So, in Twilight Tactics and other features, you will, your unicorns can die, or you could choose to kill poor unicorns if you wanted to get unicorn souls, but that will be a cost for higher tier gems.
So it rewards people for this is like a small rabbit hole, but I think it's worth exploring. It kind of models, like, I think EVE Online had one of the best archetypes for this in terms of the economy mechanism. You have two ships, they're in hardcore mode, they want to battle each other. When they agree to battle, they know somebody's going to die, right? Okay, great. So the person that's going to die accepts that they're going to lose everything that's on their ship. The person that wins, they get to loot whatever's on the enemy ship, but the space of what they can carry back on their spaceship is limited. So you only get, let's say, like 50% of whatever that spaceship that was destroyed is worth. So 50% of the materials that were lost in that battle end up getting burned into the ether, which is great for the economy. But what's cool about this loop is, like, neither side feels like it's unfair. The winner got his share of the rewards, and the loser, like, knew what he signed up for in terms of it being like hardcore mode, right? So that is so far one of the more elegant kind of gameplay psychology loops that works for burning. Everyone talks about burn, but it has to be in a way that doesn't just feel like attacks or like, all right, well, everybody just agree to light some of your own money on fire, right? Like, nobody wants to do that. It has to have a risk and reward sort of trade-off to it. So this is part of our way of trying to make unicorns dying as part of the, all right, we're going into the dark forest. Occasionally I have to risk a unicorn if I get unlucky and hit the negative jackpot, so to speak, where I lose a unicorn. At least you get a little rake back for it. And it's like a way of, the more you take risk playing the game, you get more of these unicorn souls, and then that becomes a useful reagent somewhere else. So sort of a long-winded explanation, but it's a way to try to make these burn mechanisms feel a little bit less punishing and feel connected to the game loop rather than just being a game tax. Because I think that maybe can have a short-term benefit, but overall has a pretty negative psychology.
Yeah, we would want to only require this for the highest tiers of gems, the most powerful ones. The bulk of gems won't have a unicorn soul cost.
Right. And just to go back to the original question, just to be super clear, there's two different cost moments. There's the very first step, which is the buying of a codex pool to one of the three tiers: the common, the rare, the mythic, and that's broken into the 6 tiers. So you get some of those, you get these codices, you go, all right, wow, I like this one. It's pretty low material cost. It's the stat that I want. It's got high charges. Great. Let's go ahead and start making some gems. Then there's a cost to make each gem, and that's variable depending on the specific codex you're looking at, and what stat roll it got, and that kind of stuff. And that's where it will require existing in-game sources, your magic molecules, your gem pebbles, your cirrus flakes, what have you. So sort of different spending layers. The idea here is to try to gobble up some of those old resources that have been around for a while and players have been stockpiling.
Gotcha. So I think this answers our next question that was by Eldon Alex. Why do we need gems when we already have breeding? Yeah,
Oh,
that
oh yeah. The two kind of go hand in hand. So think of breeding evolution as your baseline stats for your unicorn. You know, the better you breed and evolve and go through that pathway, you're raising the baseline stats of your unicorn, and then gems allows you to modify the stats on top of that. So, you know, using the, you know, you could use the same exact set of gems on a weaker unicorn or a stronger unicorn, but obviously the stronger unicorn is going to benefit more from that, mainly because of the bonuses. So, you know, the raw stat increases, yeah, plus 20 magic is going to be the same whether it's on a 1200 stat unicorn or 1800 stat unicorn. But, you know, a plus 12% to magic, that's going to impact the 1800 unicorn more, assuming its magic stat is higher, because it's multiplicative. It's percentage based. So, um, you know, so the two, in my mind, go hand in hand. If you really want to be competitive, um, you should
It
still be
also
a breed. Yeah.
it also helps with customization. The gems now allow you to take a unicorn that might be like good in some regard. Maybe you got the parts that you wanted, but you didn't get the gene upgrades. This allows you to start filling in some gaps. Or again, with the quest board, if you feel like, all right, I've got my 30 unicorns and I don't have a lot of crystal unicorns, so anytime there's a quest that needs the more defensive stats, I can't perform very well, and I got to just wait or take a lot of risk. Now you could buff up some of your unicorns, with those defensive stats, and now you've filled the gap in your little strategy without having to just buy more unicorns or breed more unicorns, but by adjusting the ones that you already own. So that's part of it. And what's also cool about this is you can replace gems, right? So sure, it's inefficient because you have to burn some, but if the meta changes or you change your mind, or all of a sudden, you place on the clan leaderboard and you've got all these new unicorns and you go, okay, I don't have this deficit anymore. Now I just want to buff up this cloud unicorn's power. You could replace all those gems, breed them out, and pump up the power. And all of a sudden he's like, he or she is a big time dominator in the jousting arena, or some new gameplay loop where you need that stat. So it's really about customization. I think that's a great way to summarize it. Breeding is the base mechanism, and that's like our biological mechanism, and that's great and sacred and holy for our ecosystem. But what we're lacking is a way to, customize your children. You want your unicorn to grow up and be able to choose a career path. You work hard, you study, you spend all this time on the farm. You got to have some control over how that unicorn evolves. I think that's part of the idea.
Definitely.
Ooh, well, this is a good question. Will gems be destroyed when unicorns die in tactics? I assume the answer is yes, but that's an interesting. Will you get extra unicorn souls if you have a corn that's been bred out and tricked out with gems?
The gems will be destroyed. That is an interesting idea that we have not considered. We will think about that. That's so. Obviously, gems are an investment. High tier gems are an investment. With Twilight Tactics, you will have full control over which unicorn dies when you do send the party out into the Dark Forest. For most gameplay modes, we want you to have some control over which unicorn dies, because it is an investment, right? There may be the top tier, most competitive, gameplay mode. Maybe we will relax that and have true risk, but for the most part, we want you to have controls because we don't want investment to go down the drain randomly.
I say what you're saying is most people will be sacrificing really low stat donkeys that you probably wouldn't put gems on anyway for the foreseeable future. Is that sort of it's like, no, gems will be destroyed, but also you'll be able to select which unicorns die, so you could always select the ones that don't have gems, as an example.
For some loss of fighting power, yeah. I mean, when it comes to Twilight Tactics, and we'll do another presentation like this, probably maybe next month. or closer to when Twilight Tactics launches. But you're gonna have to ask yourself the unicorn that's up for being killed. If do you want to do something that use a unicorn that has better stats, but risk losing it, or do you want more fodder, but you're going to lose a little some stats from that'll be kind of a decision that you can make. But that is a discussion for a later time when we talk about Twilight Tactics. But I guess to answer your question, yes, gems will be burned when the unicorn dies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, dude. You could go full Diablo style. Rip out the soul stone, stick it into a new unicorn. Urgh. Sorry, that was dark. Shadowcorn style, dude.
Our favorite question. So you did mention that gems will come with tribes, and SKMD is asking, so when tribes?
Fall.
Fall.
I can get more specific, but I don't want to put too much pressure. Yeah, in the fall.
The answer is, we're in Q3 right now, so it's somewhere in this probably early Q4 mark feels relatively fair. Our timelines are always
fall
moving.
time, yeah.
Yeah, I think tail end of fall is probably pretty fair. There's even just if you think about it, kind of logically, right? Like tribes has to do with the Shadowcorn arc. There's some connection. So we want to get some Shadowcorn stuff foundation out and completed before then. So still some steps to go, given that the Shadow Forge is really the first big shift in opening up that part of the gameplay. So yeah, just knowing that there's a few releases to come before then, it's hard to give an exact date because there's just a lot of variables between then and now. But this is definitely like a 2023 initiative. This is the kind of thing that you should expect before Christmas break, I think, for sure.
All right. I think another one question that the community has is there's this article that they've been looking forward to for a while. That gives them more information on how to breed higher stat unicorns. Do we have some sort of timeline on this?
Yeah, kind of. I've been struggling with it. My little anecdotal story is I thought I had it all figured out, and then I was trying to brag about my breeding wins to Mitch, and he went, "Mate, what the fuck are you doing? You bought a 3-part mythic and you're breeding it this way without tier 6 boosters. You're not even close to achieving the stated goal that you told me you were trying to achieve with all this breeding." So I had to go back to the drawing board a little bit. The good news is I have this document. It's going to be a section in the Git book, and I would say I have it about like 60% done. I mentioned it in Sirius yesterday. Jeff and I had a sync, and I've now got the outline complete, and I've got notes in all of the parts of the outline, and I kind of just need to turn the notes into writing. So the good news is I think I understand it. The bad news is I still need a little more time to finish it. And since I'm at Denver at Rare Evo, I was hoping to finish it today, but it might be a little tricky. So we're soon. We're getting there. I apologize for this taking so long. Right now, the plan is to have it kind of walk through what are the general motivations for breeding, what's the difference between genes and parts, how do they work, what's the kind of science behind the genesis, where do boosters fit into the equation, the nuts and bolts of hatching and evolution boosters, and then really tackling 3 specific high-level strategies that aren't actually that complicated once you understand all the early stuff. Number 1, how to optimize 4 specific genes. It's pretty easy. You just match the genes that you want. If you want the A gene, you get 2 parents both with A genes. How to clone a unicorn, mixed class, use the berries, and then boost it up and increases the chances of getting a very similar unicorn to that singleton parent. And then the last one is how to breed for maximum mythic parts. And that one just kind of talks about the risk differential of matching mythic parts versus going for the long shots of mismatching mythic parts. So that's the current plan. Hopefully that gives some clarity. I'm certainly the one to blame on this one, though.
No worries. I think the community is really looking forward to it. We do have a lot more questions, but let's limit it to 3 more questions because we are nearing the end of the hour. Okay, a question from Wasper and Bahes. This sort of the same question, so let me just read one out. Is there room to have unique gems, collectibles, or with a cross-class stat or something? Like a jackpot where you get wild stats or something similar. It would be cool if there was something rare, like a mystical gem with light percent stats, or something similar, like a mutation, if you will. How do you feel about that?
So, we talked about, tiers 1 through 6. We aren't limited to those tiers when it comes to gems. Already trying, looking down the road, things like, event gems when there's, when we do like a quarterly event, having a gem that still has the stats like other and bonuses like other gems would, but would have a specific bonus that is or stat that applies during that event period. That's something we've discussed and that we're kind of designing around for the future. I think again, broadening the number of bonuses a gem or different types of bonuses a gem could have as more features are done. Yeah, we're definitely open to that. The jackpot idea is interesting. I think not sure if we would do it on raw stats, but maybe having a jackpot bonus or something is something that we should be able to do, given how we're designing gems and the weights of stats and bonuses. But
there's a couple different ways you could implement something like that, but it could even be something really simple. It's just like an extra little thing that, a little disclaimer. It's like a 1.1x multiplier or something, or just some extra bonus that implies like, hey, this one's special. It hit the jackpot. It's almost like adding like a holographic version is sort of what he's asking about. 0.1% of the time you get the shiny one and it has some extra stat, and it's almost one of those, like, the prestige of it being rare outweighs the bonus. The bonus isn't the significant part. It's the fact that it's shiny and a little bit of a flex is maybe part of it. I mean, I'm sure extra stats are cool too, but now we're opening up a whole can of worms here. But I have to admit, Jeff, the psychology behind shinies is pretty strong. I've been looking more and more at card games recently, and it pains me how much the psychology of shinies and holographics really works. It works on me as well. Like it's crazy watching people open like CS:GO cases and stuff. This is a proven art.
yeah, definitely.
Nothing like good old dopamine.
Yeah.
We do have a question, another one from Alden Alex. Will you have any plans to revamp the flat versus percent ratio for stats as stats get higher? Because I feel like, as we breed higher and higher unicorns, there will be more of a utility towards the percent-based gems.
Mm-hmm.
No. I mean, for one thing, we're not going to be able to do that since these are NFTs, and once a gem is created, the balancing of that gem is out of our control. We, should if percent bonuses become a problem, we can change the codex balances so that it's harder to get percent bonuses, but no, it's not a concern that we have right now. Down the road, for certain features in game where we have a lot more flexibility with stats, because they could only apply to certain we could have a bonus only apply to certain feature, like a tribe dungeon or tribe v tribe or a RPG loop. We could definitely inflate stats more than what's on the unicorn because that's handled by the server. On chain, we have less of the ability to do that. But again, some of the higher bonuses, if we say it only applies to this loop, we can make sure that it's not used in Twilight Tactics or other on-chain gameplay.
Yeah, and I do think, again, this is a first look, right? So a lot of these numbers aren't locked in. There's still a lot of testing and other design features that could go, all right, now this number feels a little too high or a little too low. I think it is a fair concern or thought to bring up, hey, percentages can get really wild if somebody hits like 2300 stat corn that's maxed out in power, and then they put 30% power buff gems on this thing, it might get a little stupid. That's just fair thought. We need to think about those edge cases and like what's the luckiest breed with the best gem rolls look like, and how do we make sure that doesn't just we're one shotting people in jousting now. It just the unicorn flies off the screen into another universe. Totally valid. And that's stuff that we're going to think about and test, and maybe those percentage numbers are calibrated a little bit high, but food for thought.
Yeah, and if the community can think of any other edge cases like that, you're free to share them with us. Just tag us in Sirius and we will take note of it. A final question so that we can end the town hall. We are a couple of minutes over time already. So if there are equipped gems on a unicorn and a unicorn gets transferred to a different wallet, will the gems follow?
Yes, because they are part of the unicorn's metadata.
They're part of the unicorn's soul, man.
So
Locked
gem.
in.
Pretty.
Can't take it out.
It.
It's like
No take
marriage.
back,
You're marrying your unicorn and your gem together, and there's no divorce. We're taking a page from the Philippines book.
Not like this.
Yeah, in fact, we're still working on the UI for this, but our plan is to have the UI be a giant horseshoe with 8 gem slots that you physically select gems to go into a slot. So they do go with the unicorn.
Very pretty. Yeah, you can't just take that away from them. Well, that does conclude all the questions that we have. I see that a lot of people are slickers and they might have questions in future. So if you do, just leave that on the feedback channel on the Town Hall number 44 questions thread, and we'll make sure to answer that for you. In the meantime, though, that is the last question, and thank you so much for showing up to the Town Hall. That concludes our bi-weekly Town Hall number 44. We'll see you next week for the bi-weekly Town Hall number 45. That's next week with CEO and co-founder Aaron Beyerschmidt. We'll post a recording of this Town Hall on our socials if you would like to give it a real listen, and don't forget to share this with your friends and fellow unicorn fans who couldn't make it. If you have more burning questions, feel free to reach out on our support channels, the Mod Support channel and the Ask the Devs channel. This has been the LG Internal Town Hall, hosted by Sparkly Unicorn and with a unicorn on tech. Good morning and good night, unicorn fam. Woo woo.